I said on one of these I'd talk about my bicycle stories, and boy, do I have some. My first bike, I don't even remember requesting a bike for my birthday. I think it was just my family was like, he's old enough, we got to get him a bike. But my Uncle Michael came through for me on my fifth birthday. He was a big fan of NASCAR, and his favorite driver was number 24, Jeff Gordon. And if you've seen Jeff Gordon's car, you know the color scheme, what this bike looked like. Had a big gold 24 on it. It was red and blue. Just the perfect bike, really. And I remember sitting at the table with all my friends and my birthday cake in front of me and him coming out of the hallway with it. I still remember him holding it up like he was and smiling. My Uncle Mike is he's not very good with crowds, but he was pretty proud of what he'd done. And like I said, there was probably some scheme with my mother or grandparents that caused that. But either way, Uncle Mike really did me a solid there with the bike. And of course, I was really excited. I really wanted to know how to ride it. But I very quickly found out that that was going to be impossible. It was just not gonna work, and that I needed training wheels. And really thinking about this story, this is really a type of story in my whole life whenever I try and do anything new or risky. But my parents' solution, I talked about them walking up and down the road every day, or trying to every day, was, okay, well, when we go out and walk, all you got to do is ride down the part of the road that borders the front lawn. So in other words, our driveway was there, and then we got to the road, and then going down the road, eventually we would meet our neighbor's property, and that's where I could, get off and walk it back to the house. And I thought I was really big, whenever they'd go on walking down the road and I'd walk that thing across the front lawn. I thought, man, this is cool. I have a bike. I wasn't riding it, but I really thought having a bike was cool. Even just walking around with it was cool. My dad's solution is, well, and it had a little license plate hanging off of the seat that with my name on it. So he says, what I'll do is while I'm walking, I'll take my right hand and I'll grab onto the seat and I'll hold you steady, and you can pedal and kind of keep the front wheel straight. Learning how to ride a bike, you get the hang of it pretty quick, but you have, little goof ups or whatever. And I was so nervous, man. I had, my stomach was doing backflips thinking about riding this thing. I was just so scared of it for some reason. Somebody must have told me you can fall off of them and get hurt, and I thought that was a really big deal. But true enough, going down the road, my dad holding onto the seat, and me pedaling, I could get there. And I don't remember if he started to do this immediately or just very shortly after I kind of got the hang of it, but I would get this feeling when I was going along, like I was doing really good. And I looked back and he wasn't holding onto the seat anymore. And I would just flip out and get so mad at him and say, you're supposed to be holding onto the seat. Why aren't you holding onto the seat anymore? Keeping me upright. And he'd say, you were doing fine. You made it 30 feet without me holding on to it. And I would be so emotional about it and saying, no, you got to hold on or else I'm going to fall over. That's no good. And I mean, just time and again, he would let go of it and I wouldn't know. And I would be riding it on my own. And then I would look back and realize he wasn't holding on to it. And then I would flip out and not be able to ride it anymore. Wouldn't have that confidence, of I'm not going to fall over. And I still remember the different feeling, when he would let go of it and being able to hold to it. But I eventually complained enough and they got me some training wheels, which is kind of funny because I could have done it on my own, but I was addicted to those training wheels, man. There's a lot of things that people practice that I see now in my life that people take the easy way, or they have some sort of aid to them. I think of it especially learning music. People get paper trained on music, or people that want to play the fiddle, but they want the whole violin shoulder setup with it and don't just want to play the thing, or they can't play without looking at a sheet of music, that kind of thing. Training wheels are not good for you, anyway, is what I'm trying to say. Eventually, I got good enough at it, and I do remember that being contentious as well. They're like, okay, well, we're going to take the training wheels off of your bike. And I was like, no, you can't do that. It's impossible. I'm having so much fun riding this bike. There's no way you're going to take those training wheels away from me. And they accommodated me as best they could. They said, okay, well, we're going to take the right one off first, and then in a couple days we'll take the left one off. But by that time, I could ride just fine. I didn't need them. I just thought that I needed them. And so I got pretty good at riding my bike. I wasn't like the other kids that lived in the city, in the neighborhood, that had pavement or paved concrete driveway or streets and grassy hills to ride around on. My options were the yard, which is full of rocks and holes and ruts and splotchy, rough grass, or the gravel road. And so the gravel road, and of course we lived in this hilly road steep ups and steep downs to where I could walk my bike up to the top and like coast down, but I either didn't have the strength or the confidence to pedal up the things. And one day we were all coming home from one of those walks, and my mom, I told her something like, I'm gonna wait here, and you guys are gonna walk to the end of the driveway, and I'm just gonna go really fast down the driveway and see how fast I can make it down there. And something went awry right as I got to the end, and this is any of my friends imagining this driveway will be imagining the gray gravel that we had on it, but this was that old like county road red gravel with the big rocks in it. But anyway, I went off the bike. I remember it went over to one side, and I went down to catch myself with my elbow, and I skint I think both of my elbows and both of my knees and like a part of my calf doing that. And oh, that was just a catastrophe. I just couldn't take that. And so my mom's solution was, your birthday's coming up, so we'll get you a helmet and some knee pads and elbow pads, which you don't need because, you're 6 or 7 years old and your bike is only a few feet off the ground. But I guess it made me feel better at the time. And I remember getting them, and even places I didn't have a bike, I would take these safety equipment just to show people. And I remember being up here in Myron at my grandparents' place, and my great-grandfather, who was quite old at the time and he didn't talk much anyway, but he had a very low and kind of airy voice. And I was trying to get him, I couldn't read at the time, actually. So I wasn't 6 or 7. I must have still been 5 when all that happened. I knew words. I just wasn't so great with some words. And I was trying to get him to read the name on the bike helmet. It was a black helmet with Bell, the famous bicycle equipment company. Bell. And I remember taking it and saying, "What does this say?" "Bell." "What does it say?" "Bell." And I gleefully went to my grandmother, who was in a different room, and said, "Oh, hey, I know what this says. It says Bill." And she was like, "No, no, 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 no. It says Bell, Bell." And I went, "Oh, Pop said it was Bill, like a man's name." Also, on that first bike that I had, I never got used to the handbrakes because it had some feature in it. I'm sure some bikes have it, some bikes don't, or maybe it's just like a thing that kids' bikes have, where you pedal forward, it makes the bike go forward. But when you pedal back, it locks and brakes. And so I got used to, when I wanted to slow down or brake, just throwing my pedals back halfway and I would brake. Well, one day my cousin was grown up enough to where my aunt wanted to get her a bike. So all of us, me, my mom, my cousin, and my aunt, went to Walmart to get her a bike. And Mom was like, "Well, my son's growing up, better get him a new one." So him and his cousin both have a new one, and that's not a issue. I got this new bike, and I was really, really excited about it because it was actually a good bike. I'm not gonna lie. I really liked it, but it did not do that. If you spun the pedals backwards on this one, absolutely nothing happened. Just the pedal spun back. It didn't engage the chain at all. And I didn't know that. So we got back to Melbourne and pulled into this little parking area next to my great-grandparents' house. And my grandparents and my great-grandparents were next door neighbors. And so I'm going to show my grandma this new bike. Well, we pull up there and get the trunk open and get my bike out. And the way my grandmother's house, it's been added on to so many times. So what used to be, you turned off the road and went down a pretty steep driveway into a garage. They had turned the garage into the front porch, and there was just a small carport there. But the steepness of the driveway was still there. And so I'm thinking, oh yeah, this pavement's nice. I'm just going to turn right in here and show her my new bike. And I get on that steep driveway. I'm picking up speed about halfway down it, and I start spinning the pedals backwards, and nothing is happening. Thinking, oh, I'm just going to brake right here and pull up right next to the door. Well, I didn't do that, and I just kept gaining speed. And then at the bottom, there's this ditch in it, where like rainwater and sand and stuff collects, and then you go up onto like the porch proper. And the porch is maybe 5 feet long, and then there's the front door and the wall. And so I go down this thing. But I was going pretty fast, or faster than I needed to be, I'll say. And I hit that ditch, and then that bump up onto the front porch, and I remember kind of launching out of my seat, and the bike kind of went just a little bit out from under me. And I remember it hitting the wall and turning sideways, and then I just wham right into the wall and started crying. And because it hurt me, and it shocked and surprised me. And of course, I looked like a fool because I looked like an idiot. doing that, I'm sure, to any passersby. And I thought I might have hurt my bike that we just got home, you know? So all that went through my mind at that time. And plus, I've got this percussive feeling in my chest and my forehead of hitting this wall and collapsing on the ground. My grandmother had no idea we were even coming back, but she opened the door and finds me in this bike she's never seen before, and I'm just in a pile crying. She was going, "What on earth is happening out here?" Because she had just been quietly sitting inside reading, and then thud, and then there's your grandson. But that was my new bike, and I did learn how to use handbrakes, and I did learn that the right hand is your front wheel brake after some experimentation. And then I got really good at riding a bike on that dusty dirt road. And so those are the end of my bicycle stories. But I want to say, man, bicycles are really cool, and I really wish I had one today because I feel like I would get a lot of enjoyment of riding it around here. It's been something that's like been on my mind for a while. Like I just really want a bike. Like those things are so cool.